Chain Drug Review, and Mass Market Retailers Video Forum. Brought to you by the Emerson Group.
Hello everyone, I'm Jeffrey Wolt, Editor-in-Chief of Retail Media IQ. Welcome to our video forum. We're pleased today to bring you the second half of our discussion with Leslie Sarasin, President and CEO of FMI, the Food Industry Association. Last time we left off discussing high food prices and the inflationary pressure that shoppers still face. In light of that, Leslie discussed the possibility of rethinking certain aspects of the food supply chain.
We have been working with our companies on this, talking to them about ways they can talk with their customers about this. And we've also been encouraging them to evaluate their supply chains. As we think about the tariff situation that the new president has announced, it's important for our companies to think about their supply chains, think about the products they get from outside the U.S., whether they're from Mexico or Canada or China or not, and what alternatives they might have. And in the event that large tariffs go into effect in countries from which we are importing a lot of food products, whether that we might have opportunities to source those products domestically. And if we don't, whether we can source them from other places internationally. So there's a lot at stake here. There's a lot unknown at this point, and I think the most important thing for our companies to do is to plan, to be thinking about this, considering alternatives, but also to be patient. And before they act quickly, to wait and see how this plays out. The president has already extended for 30 days the 25% tariffs against Mexico and Canada that he had proposed. We don't know how this is going to play out or what will happen next, but I think the safe thing to do is to plan and be ready to act if necessary.
Let me ask you another thing that was highlighted at Midwinter is technology, and especially the whole digital world and AI. What are you doing to help your members keep pace with this revolution we seem to be in the midst of?
Well, it's been fascinating. We've done a lot of research at FMI on how our companies are thinking about technology and how they are implementing it in their companies. And of course, as you know, we have our own internal technology group that is comprised of technology experts from within our member companies. So it's been a great opportunity for us to bring them together, talk through what they're experimenting with, what they're learning from their experiments, learn from some of the suppliers of services and products, what's new, what's coming down the road, and how those can be implemented into our grocery operations. We've witnessed strong investment by our companies in technology. In 2023, retailers devoted an average of nearly 1% of their total sales, which is more than $10 billion in new technology investments for their companies. Most food retailers report that their technology expenses will increase in the next year or so, with 7% anticipating they'll increase by a lot. Now, we don't know what a lot is, but I'm guessing it's big numbers. And 81% of our retailers continue to experiment with multiple new technologies so that they can do their best to improve the customer experience. And a large number, nearly half of our retailers and nearly 70% of our food suppliers are using AI in their operations. So it's becoming much more commonplace than it had been previously, but we're still doing everything we can to try to help our companies deal with technology and figure out how best to use it in their companies. We've undertaken several projects in the last couple of years, some of which were discussed widely at Midwinter. One is a project that have been working on with Accenture about the daunting data dilemma. And it is indeed daunting, but with the work that we've been doing with Accenture, we're hoping that it will become a little less so, so that companies can take a look at their data issues and figure out what the opportunities are for using that data to enhance their business operations. We've also been working on retail media networks, which is an exciting but also somewhat, I think, challenging opportunity for our companies. Everyone's trying to figure out what it means and how it affects them in their operations. So we've been doing some work with NIQ and Blue Sky to look at the rise of retail media networks, some of the pain points our companies are experiencing, and even some of the really basic information, like coming up with a glossary of terms so that when we use specific terms in this industry related to retail media networks, we know what they mean. And we're all sort of singing from the same song sheet, as they say. So a lot going on related to retail media networks. And then we also are continuing our work with NIQ on digitally engaged grocery shoppers, learning more about the size of the prize and how companies can take advantage of the digital shoppers' interests.
With the Trump administration taking shape, how do you go about maintaining and improving your relationship with FDA, USDA, and all the various other government agencies that FMI deals with?
Well, this is critical to our success, and the team at FMI is very experienced in working with the federal agencies. Of course, FDA, USDA, and HHS are critical to our work, but there's a whole host of others that we have to have good relationships with as well, and I would include in that group EPA, FTC, OSHA, the Labor Department, and the list goes on and on because we represent such a broad segment of the industry and because we're so heavily regulated as an industry. So there are lots of people that we need to stay in close touch with on a daily basis, and we do that by being open and straight with them, connecting with them on a regular basis, and not only when we have a crisis. We try to share with them as much information as we possibly can on how our industry functions, what the ramifications will be of the decisions that some of these policymakers will take, and how we can work with them to enhance their regulatory authority and their regulatory role in making sure the industry achieves what it needs to. We, of course, have done this for years, and so we're very experienced at it. And we have worked with this administration before, so to some degree, we're familiar with some of the folks who are involved. But as you also know, we still are working in an environment where we don't have people in place yet. We don't even have confirmed department heads in all the departments yet. And so we are doing what we can to begin to communicate with the people that we think are going to be in the decision-making authorities. We worked with the transition team before the inauguration to make sure that they understood who we are and what we do and why we're important for them to consider as they move forward. So this will just develop over time as people get put into various roles. And we have a number of issues that we're focused on. One, of course, is traceability, which I already mentioned. Another relates to an EPA regulation on refrigeration systems and proposal to reduce the refrigerants that we use to lower global warming potential type refrigerants. And that's going to be critical as well because not only is there an implementation period problem in that it goes into effect really quickly, but the technology doesn't exist yet to do a lot of what needs to be done in the grocery sector. So that's going to be a big one for us to work on. We're working still on swipe fees for debit cards. We're trying to get them to actually issue a final rule on lowering the swipe fee on debit cards. It hasn't been lowered for many years, I think like since 2011. Meanwhile, the cost to service a debit card has gone down considerably. And so we want them to fix that and fix it quickly. In the final days before the Biden administration end, FDA came out with a new front-of-pack labeling proposal for food products, which is sort of the last thing we needed. Yet another labeling scheme to try to incorporate into our food packages. And this one would go on the front of the package. I sometimes worry we're going to get to a point where there's going to be no room for branding. But hopefully we'll be able to make some progress on some of these issues with the new administration. And I think in the coming months we'll have a much better feel for who we'll be working with on what issues and how we can best help them do what they need to do and keep our companies in business at the same time.
Are there any particular parts of the President's agenda that you think align best with FMI's top priorities?
Well, my favorite one that he has come out with recently is that for every new regulation that comes out of federal agencies, they need to agree to do away with 10 that already exist. And I don't mind telling you that for almost all of the agencies we've just discussed, we could come up with dozens that they could do away with as they come out with new ones. So I think that's my current favorite one, and probably will be my favorite one for a while, because getting rid of some of these regulations could do so much to help this industry function much more efficiently.
Well, I understood, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. It's always great. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I enjoyed being with you.